This week on Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays, Lightworks 14 brings new features and interface, but no source. And do you need a GUI to remove old kernels? No? Well, they made one anyway.
AMD derps about learning. We'll probably go on a tangent about that announcement, what they made yesterday. And the Rocat Tools project stops, with little to no fanfare and nary an explanation.
One of the original Ubuntu developers puts on a new hat, and it's going to be red.
It's going to be brilliant. Let's just jump right into this, because AMD chases the AI trend with it.
Yep. So it's machine learning. They did a little press-only event that they call the Radeon Instinct. And they basically presented a couple of compute GPUs, the MI6, the MI7, and the MI8. They also go up to MI25. And the MI stands for machine intelligence because, like I said, the whole thing is around machine learning, as it were. They do some predictive stuff, and they're calling their library, it's not OpenCL, but they're calling it MI Open. It's probably OpenCL based because if there's anything that AMD can do really, really well, even on Linux, considering the state of their drivers, is OpenCL performance. So, hey, good on them.
Mm-hmm. So they said this can crush the Titan X, which is using CUDA for all this stuff, but I'm going to wait for real-life benchmarks before trusting those numbers.
I don't understand what your real issue is. AMD is not known for their hype, Strider.
Yeah, and they're in competition with not only NVIDIA, but if you remember a few months back, we talked about a project by Google, which were the TPU, the Tensor Processing Units. And it's basically the same thing. And I think Intel is building a chip very similar to this. But this seems to be good news for Linux and AMD because, as we know, AMD is not the best on Linux. But if they have a project like this, which will likely be running on Linux, then it could give them the motivation to get their Linux support a bit better.
Yeah, and they do say it will run on Linux. I saw a video from someone who attended that event and posted a video on YouTube, and they were using Linux for the presentation for this specific machine intelligence bit. So, yeah, and Raja Kaduri, again, he's Mr. Hype, and he previously said that 2RX 480s in Crossfire would outperform a 1080. He'd like everyone to forget about that now. But he did a good enough job of selling the new... They are, again, compute GPUs. You don't get any video outs, at least, or if you do, he didn't mention them, he didn't show them. He was very careful with the hand placement on the backplate, so you can't really see. So, yeah, we'll see.
Seems legit. Moving on to a fully open-source Linux-capable system on a chip, but it's RISC. It's not on.
It's RISC. It's a system on a chip, so it's just a chip. It's not a board or anything. It's compatible with the RISC-V architecture, and it's pretty much meant to run with Linux. It's fully open hardware. And supposed to come, they didn't give a price for this, nor did they give a release date. But this seems a pretty interesting thing. So it's a bit different from Raspberry Pi because it's meant to be used in embedded devices, I think. But yeah, it's pretty great that we see this resurgence of RISC, the RISC architecture, because it almost went away when Apple made the switch to Intel. But now we got pretty much any phone or tablet is ARM-based. There's a whole bunch of boards like the Raspberry Pi, the Odroid, and things like that. And yeah, the RISC architecture is more and more used. So that's a good thing. That's neat.
Yeah, but nowadays, if you're going to go up against ARM, which it is a RISC-based architecture, but it's not RISC specifically anymore. And I do remember a while back, well, when I say a while back, it's like 5 years, 6 years ago, there were a couple of tablets that actually had pure RISC SoCs. And there's probably a reason they never really took off. And I don't see this resurgence, as the case may be, of pure RISC and more RISC-centric architectures like Power 8 actually doing anything to change that.
I don't know, man. What was maybe a month ago, there was that IBM Power board.
The Power 8.
$9 billion that they were trying to get out. I do vaguely remember RISC tablets. They didn't go anywhere. Strider, you were saying this is not going to come with a GPU initially.
Yeah, so the first version is not going to have a GPU. Maybe it will in the future. I think this is mainly targeting embedded devices and Internet of Things devices. So you don't usually need a display for this. It's something you can use for low-powered applications. And seems to be a pretty good choice for those things.
Pretty neat. That's lowrisk.org. All this business will be in the show notes, but something you probably won't be able to use with it is Lightworks. Remember that?
Van, do you do any video editing at all?
Never heard of video editing, man. What are you talking about? It sounds like moon magic, man. Crazy. Version 14, it is out, and really the only thing I cared about is like, where's my source, Summer? And no, they have doubled down on pretending we didn't say we were ever going to release the source. You did. But, no, the new beta is out, 14.00. It's available for, that thing, Linux and Mac OS. And what does it bring? It's got a new interface and a couple of new features that I personally don't care about because I just wish this project would die, Strider.
Well, no, it's not that at all. Apparently, it's used quite a lot in the industry, and I got that from a teacher. Well, might know her as Jill in Chatrealm. And yeah, it's used here in Hollywood amongst Premiere, and I don't know if Vegas is still around. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the big software like video editing and seems really competent as well. And it's really good to have a professional grade video editor here on Linux because yeah, we got our blenders and our Kitty in live, but this Emacs is more like professional stuff.
Yeah, it has one.
So I've tried it. It installed without any issue. I mean, no crashes whatsoever. It seems a bit like complex to get into it, but yeah, it's professional stuff, so it's not something you can jump right in, like say OpenShot. If you have some questions, I believe there is this. I don't know his name, but I call it Shaky. It's the equivalent of Clippy for Lightworks.
Now I remember why I didn't play with it. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, I welcome this release. I mean, it seems to be a pretty good software. I don't really do video editing, so I don't really have a huge use case for it. But if you want to try it, you can. It's free. You just need to create an account on their websites. The account is mandatory, so I mean that's if you don't want that, then you can't use it. Yeah, but this seems like a very good piece of software. And yeah, I'm very happy to see more and more creative software here on Linux. We've had like in the past few months or weeks, like updates on Blender, Krita, KDE and Live, and Darktable. And yeah, I mean, the only area where it's a bit lacking on Linux, I would say it's the music software.
Well, you did just talk about, professional grade software not being the easiest to use. Well, pucker up and learn Ardour. And while you're at it, spend a whole day setting up Jack.
That's a problem. I mean, hardware is pretty good, but it's a pain to set up. And yeah, there was this thread on Reddit pretty recently from a very experienced musician. And he said, well, I wanted to try to give Linux a try once more. And yeah, it's still a pain to set up. It's still...
Yeah, Jack is interesting because you need real-time kernel, and then you need to set up Jack properly, which in itself is a very involved process. Just ask the Atomic Ass. When he's in chat realm, he actually set it up. And then you can use Ardour to its full capabilities.
Yeah, and there's another one as well. There's this Bitwig Studio, which is a bit expensive. It's $300, but it's a professional music software on Linux. So that's pretty neat.
Okay. So I saw this over at Ubuntu. Free up some space with the Ubuntu Cleaner. I tried this just because, here's the fun thing. I was like, yeah, I can pick out some of my old kernels, and Strider's like, no, nuke them all from orbit. Don't do that.
I wonder why. No, I don't think the use case for this software is to remove kernels, because if you want to remove kernels, you just have apt auto remove, and it will remove
let's
your
tell
old
you
kernels.
about what this does do. Ubuntu Cleaner lets you remove app caches, app cache, thumbnail cache, and old kernels.
Yeah, it does, but you can do that pretty simply in the command line. The use case is more for the cache things, like the thumbnails, like the Firefox, Chrome, and what have you. It seems to be a less competent version of BleachBits, which I use when I'm running really low on space.
I don't know.
I mean,
I want to say this was neat. Hey, you could wipe out, free up some space, but I can't recommend this because I put it on the 1604 box. And I was like, all right, analyze. And it just hung. Okay.
I honestly don't get why people even bother making software like this for Linux. It's not like the Linux ecosystem has that big an issue with stray files like, say, Windows does. You don't really need a Linux version of CCleaner. Stop it.
Hey, man, you just wait until we start getting all these app packs chunked everywhere and you forget.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that will... Yeah.
They're pretty much isolated, so it wouldn't be a problem, I think.
Unless they cache locally.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is in this project, if you do some Python and GTK, you might want to have a read on the source code, because there's maybe a few things you can learn from it. I know I will maybe have another look, because I have had a quick look, and since I use Python and GTK, it's always interesting to see other projects use it.
Well, Pedro, I think it's about time we read a ad.
No. And so long as 92 very awesome people keep on kicking us a few wet stinkies, we won't have to. Yes, indeed, this very show is brought to you by you, our lovely Patreons. All of you
I was
who
wondering where you
kicked
were
up...
going to go with that, but...
I thought of a couple of different possibilities, but then I remembered, oh no, this isn't Saturday. Let's not. Indeed. So if you want to kick us some shekels, you can go on over to patreon.com/LinuxGamecast. There's also, if you go to linuxgamecast.com and you hit the support the chosen button, you also get Amazon affiliate links. So if you're shopping around with Amazon, it doesn't cost you anything. And we get a little bit of monies from the Amazons. And you also have like the one-time donation. Say you just won the lottery and you're not entirely sure for how long that money is going to be there, but you want to give us a chunk. We appreciate it. That's what the PayPal button's there for.
That would be brilliant, man. All we're asking for is $1 a week. That's 2 shows. And what's that, $4 a month? You won't even notice that on your credit card. But
nope.
What is that? Oh, man. All right. That's what I was thinking about snap packages.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so breaking news. Software have bugs. And this is one of them. It's related to the Ubuntu Software Center and the stamp packages. And apparently each time you want to install a stamp package, you need to sign on the Ubuntu SSO login. It's tagged as importance high, so I'm pretty sure it will get fixed soon. They do care a lot about snap packages at here at Canonical, and it's not really a blocker bug. And from what I understand is snap packages are not ready for prime time yet. So I mean, if you're affected
Canonical
by this,
would disagree.
yeah, they're trying to market it. They're trying to make a big deal out of it. But no, it's pretty new software. It's not mature yet. I think it will be ready for user consumption next year.
Yeah, that's that's a very optimistic view there, Strider. Yeah, no, this story was actually submitted by one of our Patreons, Gnarlin, and it was funny for me for two reasons. First of all, people still use the Ubuntu Software Center. Stop it. No, stop. Second of all,
come on, man. EA's got some fantastic web apps posing as games on there.
No, they have no. So you have to know that the Ubuntu software, like it was like a few years ago, doesn't exist anymore.
you're done.
It's been replaced by GNOME software, and it has a few patches on top of it. But it's not the Ubuntu Software Center as it was like 2 years ago. This is gone.
Yeah, as the case may be. Now, the other funny thing is, if you try to uninstall a snap package through the Ubuntu Software Center, it gives you the old, if you ever use like the Ubuntu cloud storage thing, Ubuntu One, it gives you that very same logo and a login box, and you're going, I thought Canonical canned this. What?
Yeah, so Ubuntu SSO is their login. It's a unified login for the Software Center, for Launchpad, for a bunch of other stuff. I think the forums as well. I'm not sure. But the funny thing is they still use this Ubuntu One logo, which doesn't have its place because it's
not a name I've heard for many years. One thing it's like Snap, that's one thing. There was a version of OpenShot 2.0 Nope came out, and they released it as an app image. And I was like, how do you launch an app image? And I did a little Googling. I was like, oh, make it executable and run it. And that's it. Now, why is Snap better than that somehow?
It's not the same thing. It's closer to Flatpak.
Yeah?
So, look, flats and snaps are closer to one another, yes. And they have a way to sort of prevent, having multiple different versions of the same library just kicking around in different containers. Both snaps and flats are trying to address that, and basically in doing so, they're reverting back to the old DNF apt, the standard package manager.
Both of them looked at app images like, that works incredibly well. Let's make it infinitely more complex. That'll be great.
Yes,
all right.
Basically, because they wanted to, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Right. But let's move on. The one teeny tiny story about gaming that we have this week is an Alienware exec says that changes to Windows blunted the appeal of Steam machines. That's not entirely true. But hey, that's our opinion. And he says that, the Alienware Alpha is selling considerably better than with Windows than the Steam machine with SteamOS. So we are possibly just going to nuke them.
I mean, Azor thinks the effort was still worthwhile to remind Microsoft about the legion of gamers who remain loyal to PCs. First off, I'm going to Valve took the lion's share responsibility for Steam machines never really becoming a thing because they didn't have but then you got to think about like Alienware, Dell, and these other companies. They're like, so your operating system drawn on these Steam machines, is it out of beta? And I'm like, nope. I'm like, cool, let's roll. Then Valve's like, well, we didn't make it. We didn't sell it. They were never plastered. Valve came out with a controller and the Steam Link. Fly Spaghetti Monster help you. You couldn't get away from ads for that, showing every time you were browsing the store. They didn't really back it with that, but I understand why Valve did what they did because Windows 8 and Microsoft's like, we're going to do our own store. And wasn't there some game recently that Microsoft put in their store that you can only play it?
Call of Duty?
Call of Duty Bros. Too Spooky
That
for You
one.
edition. Yeah, and if you mess up and you buy it there, you can't play it with anybody, so you're stuck with like the 6 other people that bought it through the Windows Store. And, Microsoft's still trying to do that. But, Strider, you blame virtual reality for this somehow. I want to hear these
because the day VR became a thing, then Valve started putting all their focus on this, on the HTC Vive, on their like new VR stuff, like they released their Portal demo. That's pretty much their most recent game. Well, it's more of a take demo, but they pretty much stopped working on SteamOS, on Steam machines, where they weren't really working on Steam machines, but they stopped giving them coverage, and they stopped pretty much caring about Linux in general. Well, they did promise VR in Linux, but still, it's not VR that we want. It's like a good implementation of SteamOS. It's a good Linux support for Steam. That's the thing that matters. VR, it's still a niche market. It's not going to become a thing like anytime soon. So let's focus on the more important things, stuff that people want.
Honestly, I don't think this has much of anything to do with VR. This is, like Ven said, 100% on Valve, and not just because of like the delay of SteamOS coming out of beta and the delay of the Steam controller, or even the slump of support SteamOS has had for the past 10, 20 versions. The third-party Steam machines were completely undercut by Valve themselves with the Steam Link. It's like the Steam Link is a cheap, unified device which allows people to stream from their main PC, be it whatever OS they're running. They can stream to it onto their TVs. And that's what a significant chunk of PC gamers actually wanted, and Valve themselves provided it. At the same time, the third-party Steam machines had enough variety for you to lose your dog in. So there goes any marketing plan of selling those boxes to console players. They, like, I don't know if you've ever had an interaction to someone who's actually pretty thick in the head, like your typical console playing peasant. I'm going to get so much hate mail. But the moment you start giving that kind of people so many choices, so many hardware configurations, so many things, they perceive it as conflicting information, and they're just going to retreat into their safe space and scream profanities at you. But then again, and I've made this point before, and I still think it's true, everyone hated the Steam client itself when it first came out. It was horrible. I remember whenever I wanted to play a Half-Life 2, having to start Steam. It's like, no, I'd rather not play it. But time went on, and now they basically have the monopoly. So I still think people will eventually see the benefits. Hell, Microsoft and Sony have seen the benefits. That's why you have the PS4 Pro and Project Scorpio.
Time will tell. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see, Dell or the likes of that roll out a new Steam box. It's just like,
it has to be Valve.
If Valve would do it, but do you really want to be in the business of making hardware? That's not necessarily. I'm sorry. The whole concept of like, let's make a computer in the living room. We already had that. But SteamOS is a good idea. Get it out of beta. Get people to start using that, because I'm not going to target that as a developer if it's not even stabilized. Right? Do you have any closing notes on this?
Yeah, I don't think you can blame the Steam Link for this, because it's a pretty good device. What I'm going to blame is CSGO knives, because we should always blame CSGO knives. And to conclude that...
Okay,
2015. It's 2016. I blame the gloves.
Yeah, the gloves as well.
Okay, so let's say you are a developer and you have a MacBook. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. And also, what are you doing watching a Linux news show? But in case you're that particular unicorn, hi, Mir.
Hang on. No, J-Baby had to get a Mac. So.
Yes, you did. They kind of forced the Mac on him because there was some bit of software that didn't work on Linux. And there was also another bit of software that didn't work on Linux, which was Valet, which basically it's the Laravel Valet is a container to help you keep your development environment separate from the rest of the system. That's a very good idea. Why it wasn't on Linux before, it's beyond me, but this is, as they describe it, a development environment for the Mac minimalist. And they have a new version of their new version is available for Ubuntu specifically. Strider?
Okay, so I don't know how things are in Portugal, but here in the US, pretty much like 90%, if not more, of the developers have Mac hardware and Mac software. It's pretty much like universal. Everyone
and
is
that
on Mac.
is why the world sucks.
maybe, but anyway, that's not the point. Going back to this Valet thing, maybe someone should tell them about this thing called Docker. Yeah, I mean, Docker is a thing, right?
Nope, never heard of it.
Yeah, because you don't do like development or stuff like this. But this is Docker, but only for the Laravel framework. It's such a strange thing to do. I mean, I don't understand what's the point. And at first, it was only on Mac, and now it's on both. Actually, it's not.
I can kind of see why they're starting to support Linux now. This isn't because this specific package is not for you, Strider. It's not for you because it's not for people who already use Linux. We have better options. We know about those other options. This is a stepping block to ease the transition for developers who feel like they've been slapped across the face by Apple and the new MacBooks. You remember
they definitely have a lot of developers that can already see the writing on the wall. They're like, okay, check this business out. 10 years from now, Apple's not going to be making laptops, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
They're not going to be making desktops, ladies and gentlemen. In your development environment, probably you don't want to go to Windows. So,
yeah, no.
Something like this not necessarily has to exist, but, if Strider hates it, it's probably pretty nice kit.
You have to use Laravel for this. I mean, if you don't use this framework, it's pretty much useless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to use their framework. And it was a very smart decision to support Ubuntu specifically. I mean, out of all the Linux distributions, it is the one that is the most focused on design above everything else, kind of like Apple does with the BASD. Yeah. So, hey, I guess that also explains the mess that Unity is.
Okay, let's talk about video stabilization. If that wasn't boring enough, this will put you to sleep. No, I ran across this and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat because, you can get rid of Shaky Cam. You can fix a lot of bad movies made in the early 2000s with this. But no, it's just a fun little command line that, you calculate the stabilization vectors. You transcode that. And it gives you basically what you would see with YouTube and their de-shakify thing that it's probably just running, that in the background. And it works pretty good. I mean, what was it? Cloverfield I ran through, may or not. It came out all right. I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and it's really neat. I wonder if this is actually the thing that YouTube uses in their backend, or if you want to build some kind of YouTube clone, you could use that. And I had no idea that was something that was inside ffmpeg himself. That makes me wonder what other features they have in stock that we don't know about.
If you went to the Fedora forums around 2005, 2006, and you asked a question like that, you would have gotten an RTFM as a reply and nothing else.
I
Google that one,
ask
kids.
a question about that because I didn't know it existed in the first place.
It's a neat piece of kit, and there's a bunch of fun things you can do with ffmpeg for fun and or profit. Go check out the track with ffmpeg. Go dig through the documentation and watch your eyes glaze over. It's fantastic. I do it sometimes just when I'm bored. But Rocat,
This one's a personal. It hits a little close to home because I actually have a Rocat mouse, and the sole reason I bought that very same Rocat mouse is because it had Linux software support that you could enable all of the advanced functions, and that software is Rocat Tools, or should I say was, because Stefan Aschatz, the one guy that was working on it, said, this will be the last device I'm doing, the Skelter. This project ends here. No fanfare, no reason, no explanation, nada.
What do you think? Like, Logitech came by and they're like, hey, come work for us.
That would make sense, and I really hope it's something along those lines, but it's probably safe to assume that's just another case of a developer getting burnt on a project and no one else is there to help him with it.
It definitely could be. I still firmly believe if your gerbil requires drivers, something has went horribly wrong in your life. But Pedro, you do have a couple of good uses for it, for like remapping.
Yeah, and it is like if you plug in your regular, Rocat mouse, it will work out of the box. The thumb buttons and everything, they will just be extra mouse buttons. That's fine. But if you use the software, you can set, like I have this one right here is set to R, this one back here is set to Q, this one is set to F, and this one here is set to E. So if I say try to play a game or something that doesn't allow me to remap controls, but the directional arrow keys on the keyboard still allow for movement, I can just use those buttons and not have to worry about it, since everything is already mapped to Q, E, R, F. Anyway, so yeah, for my case, I'm really, really sad to see this dying.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the part of the show where I get angry at stuff. I mean, I really hate it. I mean, I see that as a failure on the open source development model. It's a huge failure. If you look at the comments on the tickets where he says he's stopping, all the comments are about being sad and about not going to buy Rocket devices in the future. And if you look at the OMG Ubuntu article about this, it's the same thing. It's all people, oh, it's so sad and everything. And there's not one person, not a single one to say, hey, this project, this existing code base, it's a huge knowledge base about Rocket devices. Maybe adding support for future devices isn't that hard. Let's try it.
I don't know, Strider. Yeah. I mean, that goes against everything open source and the community stands for.
No, this is the kind of situation where that makes sometimes I think people do not deserve open source software. Like they act like leeches. They want everything, and they're not willing to put any effort. And I'm not saying that everyone should become a developer. That would lead to total chaos. But I don't know, maybe just 1% or less than that for any given project. Is that too much?
No, I don't think it's too much. And I think one thing, not even if you're not a developer, is financially supporting these people that are doing this. I think that's always a good thing because things disappear. And like, well, why did my favorite thing disappear? Oh, right. I never backed it anyway.
Yeah, and this, I'm guessing this was the case with Stefan because he did say on multiple occasions that Rocat were sending him the hardware so he could reverse engineer it. They weren't exactly paying him for it. So that may have had something to do with it as well.
Exactly. I said that before. They shouldn't have been sending him, gerbils to work with. They should have been sending checks to take to the bank.
Yeah, that would have helped him. And like you proposed, say Logitech went up to him and was like, you want to get a paycheck?
Right.
I really, really, really hope that was the case because he does some awesome work. When I first got the Rocat mouse, I ran into a couple of bugs where some functionality didn't exactly work or it was outright missing. So I poked him and I helped him debug everything, and he eventually managed to get everything up and running. It was a really awesome project.
Mm-hmm. You say it was. No, don't talk about it. in the past tense. It still is, and it still exists.
Still works right now.
I remember this project.
I mean, it's
so
open
fondly,
source.
Strider.
Open source projects are supposed to be immortal. They're supposed to stand the test of time, and it's unlike proprietary crap. You can make those projects live on as long as there's someone to care about these things. And it's not that hard. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no contribution is too small. Just show some interest, show that you care. And a project doesn't have to die because the only guy who coded for it had other plans. No, I mean, just try it.
Strider, are you
It's not that
trying
hard.
to say that you could, like, take a dead project and, I don't know, like, incorporate it into a gaming type thing?
Yeah, I've done it several times.
Okay, so it is possible. Moving on.
If anyone has the know-how and the hardware. Yes.
The alphabet Pitti in here last day at Canonical. What?
Oh, yeah. So anyone who has followed the development of Ubuntu knows about Martin Pitt. So he was one of the original developers that was hired by Mark Shuttleworth, even before it was called Ubuntu. And so Martin Pitt has been here since the beginning and is now living Canonical. He was the maintainer for Python GObjects. So if you write GTK stuff with Python like I do, you've been using his stuff. He's also been focusing on testing tools such as Autopilot and AutoPKG tests. So he has contributed a lot to the overall quality of Ubuntu. And he is now leaving Canonical for Red Hat. So this is quite a good thing. I mean, I always welcome those kind of changes. But it makes me believe that his contributions to the open source world may reach a wider audience. Because if you take, for example, like Autopilot and AutoPKG test, those are almost exclusively used by Canonical on Ubuntu. But if he goes back working on GDK, like PyGObjects or stuff like this reaches like a much wider audience, and it would make sense since GNOME is pretty much backed by Red Hat itself.
Yeah.
So
and one of the things that Martin Pitt did was he was the one who came up with the names. That's the alphabet bit of the title, like Worthy Warthog or the Wily Werewolf, or you know, the usual code name releases for Ubuntu. He was the one that did it, and well, I guess Zesty Zebra. I don't know what the Z one is called, but that's good. What?
I think it's Xerus.
Xerus, yes. And yeah, that's going to be the last one, so we'll see what kind of other naming scheme they'll come up with. And that about wraps us up for the news this week. Let's get into a teeny tiny slice of pie.
That's a beefy miracle. That's right, Slack on the Commodore 64 thanks to the Raspberry Pi. Strider was saying something earlier about, yeah, I just don't hate myself that much. And I think this project applies, but man, this is neat. Yeah, Slack on a Pi, using the Pi as your middleman. Pretty cool. Strider, I mean, come on, this is 6502
C64.
This is old school.
So it's for using Slack. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Slack fan, but I do have to use it because nowadays pretty much everyone is using Slack and ditching IRC for whatever reason. But unlike Slack, I believe you can run an IRC client natively on C64.
No,
but I mean,
this is pretty cool, man. I mean, it's using
pretty
the
cool
Pi
project
to connect to the Slack API, and it uses the serial port to talk over the USB serial driver. Now, is this as neat as the guy who managed to get a Commodore 64 online? Maybe not.
No.
Maybe not. But
The Pi is handling everything here.
still,
All
I just
the
wanted to
network
throw that in
communications.
because it had way too much of a neat factor. But before we get out of here, if people want to get in touch with us, how do they do that?
Well, they can do it in one of several ways. The most and the way we actively recommend that people do is to go to linuxgamecast.com. You hit the contact button. It's easy enough. You fill out the form. There's usually a captcha there. It's pretty easy. Come on, it's a bot. You can do better. And make sure you pick LWDW if you'd like to send some feedback over something that we said or we got wrong, as is tradition. Or if you say you have anything to say about our Saturday show, make sure to pick LGCW on that very same little box. You can also leave us a comment on the social networks or on YouTube, should that need particularly arise. So, did we poke someone the wrong way last week about Arch or Antergos or
Maybe. Anyway.
okay?
And yeah, FS check, yeah, beaches. I'm not on Arch. Well, technically, what is that? Antergos?
Antergos, yes.
Because I bashed my head against the desk many times trying to figure out why my sound cards weren't automatically working. Same for GVFS, GNOME, Virtual, and Samba shares. Anyway, give it a try, people. It's really easy to install, easy to use, and looks super simple and feature-rich. And everything works great from the start, contrary to base Arch. I went for XFCE, but switched to my beloved i3WM, soon to be replaced. Then you're just dead to me right there. Why am I even reading you? Let's Way, because Wayland happens. Right on with that. Keep on trucking, y'all. I've never used that distribution. I don't believe it's ever said any disparaging remarks about my mother, so I might give it a look, Strider. Imagine.
Yeah, you know what's really easy to install and works really well too? It's that thing I
Slackware.
use called Ubuntu.
That's debatable. Okay, I know I sound like a hypocrite right now because all three of us are running Ubuntu this very moment, but it doesn't particularly work really well in certain specific situations, and I've read
Ubuntu
it
works
about
really
that on
well
more than
until you try
occasion.
to make it do something that a normal Linux distribution should do.
And it doesn't, and stuff just starts breaking all the time, and you're going, why? I didn't touch you. Why aren't you working? Oh, right, it depended. Right, okay, so let's just take everything out and do a fresh install of, I don't know, Fedora? Solus?
No, I mean, if I had something that worked better, I would be using it right now.
I don't know, man.
Then again, you're a Strider.
Yeah, everything works for me. So,
Right.
Yes.
but that's because I'm running Ubuntu. You see.
And Windows. Ooh, on
yeah,
that
no,
note,
yeah,
let's get
no.
out of here before he turns and hulks out on us. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm at Vinstone on the Twitter nets, plus Vinstone on the G pluses.
And I am Pedro Mateos. You can always find me at Unaccounted For on Twitter or plus Pedro Mateos on Google+.
And I'm Mathieu Commando. You can find me at Striker on Twitter and plus Mathieu Commando on Google+. And you can also find me on lutris.net. You can
Lutris,
check
what's
out
that?
also
I've never heard of it.
Patch.
Please explain more.
Okay, so gaming platform for Linux, open source, supports all the video games made from the
Patreon.com/Lutris.
Thank you. All right,
Exactly.
we will return next week, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.